If you're new to fishing, some of the advice you trust most might be the reason you're getting no bites. Cast as far as you can. Buy better gear. Find the perfect lure color. Keep the bait moving. Wait for the bobber to disappear. Those rules sound sensible, and that's exactly why they waste so many beginner fishing trips. The most dangerous fishing myths don't sound ridiculous. They sound like advice from someone who knows what they're doing. One makes you cast beyond the fish, another makes you replace perfectly good equipment, and another can make you miss bites that already happened. So we're going to break down 7 common fishing myths and replace each one with a rule you can actually use. Once you understand why these myths fail, you'll know where to cast, how to present your bait, what a bite really looks like, and what to change when nothing seems to work. The first myth is that your longest cast is always your best cast. It feels logical. Deeper water is farther away. Bigger fish must live in deeper water, and reaching more water should create more opportunities. But beginners often cast beyond fish that are feeding only a few feet from shore. Imagine 2 anglers standing beside the same pond. The first walks directly to the water and launches every cast toward the center. The second stops several steps back and quietly studies the bank. There's shade beneath an overhanging branch. A narrow weed line follows the shoreline. The water becomes darker where the first small drop-off begins. The second angler places a short cast beside that edge before stepping closer. The first angler's bait might travel farther, but the second angler's bait reaches the fish first. Before making a long cast, cover the water with a simple fan. Make 1 cast along the bank. Make another diagonally away from you. Then make a longer cast. Now you're testing several distances instead of assuming the fish must be far away. Use the same approach around cover. Cast beside dock posts instead of over them. Cast along the clean outside edge of vegetation instead of burying the hook in the thickest weeds. Approach quietly. Keep your shadow off shallow water when you can, and don't stomp right up to the bank. That doesn't mean long casts are useless. Fish might hold offshore when shallow water becomes too warm, bright, shallow, or heavily disturbed. The myth isn't that long casts never work, it's that farther is automatically better. Here's the better rule. Search the close water before reaching for the distant water. That leads directly to the second myth. Fish are scattered randomly through a pond or lake. When a beginner sees a large body of water, every part of it can look equally possible. That encourages random casting toward whichever direction has the most open space. But most fish aren't wandering through the entire pond without a reason. They're looking for comfort, food, and some kind of advantage over whatever they're trying to eat. That makes edges more valuable than featureless water. An edge might be the dark line of shade beside a dock, the outside of a weed bed, the end of a fallen tree, or the place where shallow water suddenly becomes deeper. In a river, an edge can be the seam between fast and slow current. A fish can sit in the slower water while insects and small bait fish drift past in the faster flow. It gets access to food without constantly fighting the strongest current. Before you cast, ask 3 questions. Where would a fish feel comfortable? Where's food likely to pass? What nearby cover helps the fish hide or attack prey? If one location answers at least 2 of those questions, it deserves your attention. A shaded dock with small fish flashing around its posts is a stronger starting point than an empty-looking section of open water. A weed edge beside deeper water is more useful than a solid wall of vegetation with no obvious opening. Fish sometimes do move through open water. Schools might chase bait fish, travel between areas, or suspend away from visible cover. But even those fish are usually responding to depth, temperature, current, food, or light. So don't just ask where a fish could be. Ask why a fish would choose one area over another. Those first 2 myths decide whether your bait ever reaches a fish. The next one convinces beginners that the solution can be bought. The third myth is that better fishing gear automatically catches more fish. Imagine one angler holding an expensive rod beside a featureless stretch of water. Another angler has an inexpensive spinning setup, but the bait is hanging beside shade, cover, and feeding fish. The expensive rod might feel smoother. It might cast more comfortably and provide better control, but it can't make fish appear where there aren't any. For ordinary freshwater fishing from the bank, a functioning spinning rod, suitable line, a sound knot, and a small selection of hooks, weights, bobbers, bait, or lures can cover an enormous number of beginner situations. If you already have working equipment, inspect it before replacing it. Pinch the final section of line gently between your fingers and slide them toward the hook. If you feel rough spots, flattening, or small cuts, remove the damaged section and retie. Check that the reel releases line smoothly. Make sure the hook point is sharp and exposed. Confirm that the lure isn't bent, tangled, or covered in weeds. Cheap equipment with healthy line and a dependable knot is more useful than premium equipment attached to a damaged connection. A simple bobber rig can teach you about depth, bite detection, bait placement, and patience. A small lure can teach you about casting, retrieve speed, bottom contact, and how fish react. The important question isn't whether your equipment looks impressive, it's whether you can use it consistently and place a believable meal where fish can reach it. Better equipment can eventually improve sensitivity, casting control, durability, and comfort. The myth begins when a beginner expects equipment to replace location, presentation, or observation. Here's the better rule. Improve the connection between you and the fish before upgrading the equipment in your hand. Finding fish is only half the problem. The next two myths can make the right lure look completely useless. The fourth myth is that you need to discover the perfect lure color. Color can matter, but beginners often change colors when the real problem is location, depth, speed, or the way the lure is moving. Imagine a bright red lure passing several feet above a fish that's feeding near the bottom. Now replace it with a green one, then a silver one, then a yellow one. The colors keep changing, but every lure still passes above the fish. Now imagine using the original lure at the correct depth. The fish finally has an opportunity to notice and reach it. That doesn't prove color is meaningless. It proves color can't fix every other part of the presentation. Start with a small lure you can control. Before making a full cast, lower it into clear, shallow water beside you. A spinner blade should rotate. A soft plastic should move naturally instead of twisting into a corkscrew. A bobber rig should hang without wrapping around the main line. Watch how quickly the lure needs to move to work correctly. Notice how fast it sinks. Check whether it immediately collects weeds or rolls sideways. In clear water, a natural color resembling a small fish, insect, or other common food is a sensible place to begin. In stained water, stronger contrast, vibration, movement, or scent might help fish detect the presentation. Then leave the lure tied on long enough to learn something. Give it several good casts around likely fish-holding water. Test the appropriate depth and speed. If fish follow but refuse it, a smaller profile, slower movement, or different color might help. But if you see no fish, get no reaction, and repeatedly fish empty water, changing colors won't solve the larger problem. Here's the better rule. Choose location first, depth second, speed third, and use color to refine a presentation that already reaches fish. The fifth myth is that more movement always attracts more fish. Fast movement is easy to notice, which makes it feel more effective, but a lure can move so quickly that a hesitant fish never gets an easy opportunity to eat it. Imagine a fish holding beside a weed edge. The first lure races past and disappears. The second enters the same area, slows down, pauses, and stays within reach. Both lures attracted attention. Only one gave the fish enough time to react. Begin with a controlled retrieve. With a soft plastic, move it a short distance, pause, and let it settle before moving it again. With a spinner, reel only fast enough to keep the blade working. With a bobber, let the rings on the surface disappear before dragging the bait into another position. Your lure should occasionally tell you what's beneath it. A light tap against weeds, rock, wood, or bottom gives you information. If the lure stays buried in vegetation, raise the rod tip, retrieve slightly faster, or fish shallower. If it never touches anything and the fish are probably deeper, lower the rod tip or let it sink longer. Clear, calm water and heavily fished public ponds often make a slower first presentation sensible. Colder water can also reduce how far or how quickly some fish are willing to move, but slow isn't automatically better either. If fish are actively chasing bait, striking near the surface, or repeatedly following without committing, a faster or more erratic presentation might trigger a reaction. The myth is treating one speed as the automatic solution. The fish should help decide how quickly the lure moves. Here's the better rule. Begin under control, then let the fish give you permission to speed up. The next myth is worse. It can make you finish the day believing nothing bit, even though fish already touched your bait. The sixth myth is that every bite makes the bobber disappear or nearly pulls the rod from your hand. Some bites are dramatic. Many aren't. A bobber might tilt to one side. It might rise slightly because a fish lifted the weight. It might begin sliding sideways without ever going underwater. With a lure, a bite might feel like one light tap, unexpected heaviness, or sudden slack because the fish picked up the lure and swam toward you. Imagine two anglers watching identical bobbers. The first waits for the float to vanish. When it tilts and begins moving sideways, the angler assumes it's only the wind. The second notices that the bobber is traveling against the normal surface movement, removes the slack, feels steady pressure, and connects with the fish. Watch the line where it enters the water. Wind and current usually move the line in a predictable direction. A bite might make one section jump, stop, accelerate, or travel sideways against that pattern. When something changes, point the rod toward the line and reel gently until the slack disappears. If you feel steady weight, lift the rod smoothly while continuing to reel. Don't use an enormous overhead hook set with small hooks and light line. That can pull the bait away from the fish or launch the hook and weight back toward you. You're trying to create firm pressure in a bent rod, not maximum force. Once the fish is hooked, maintain tension. Let the drag release line if the fish pulls hard and guide it away from heavy cover without forcing it beyond what the line can handle. Some species and presentations do produce violent strikes. A moving lure can get hit hard, and an aggressive fish can pull a bobber underwater instantly. The myth is believing that every real bite must look dramatic. Here's the better rule. Don't wait only for a big movement. Respond when the normal pattern changes. And that leads to the most expensive myth of all. Not in money, but in entire fishing trips wasted. The seventh myth is that no bites automatically means there aren't any fish. Sometimes a spot really is empty. But silence can also mean the fish are deeper, shallower, less active, positioned beside different cover, or unwilling to chase the current presentation. The beginner mistake is changing the lure, depth, speed, color, and location all at once. If the next cast works, you won't know which change mattered. Use the one change rule. Begin by covering one promising edge with a close cast, a diagonal cast, and a longer cast. If nothing happens, change the depth. Adjust the bobber, raise or lower the rod tip, or let the lure sink longer. If that produces nothing, change the speed. Slow the presentation, add pauses, or move it slightly faster if the fish appear active. Then try a slightly smaller bait or profile. Change only one major variable at a time so every cast gives you useful information. You also need permission to move. If you've covered the nearby edge, reached a deeper zone, tested sensible speeds, and seen no bait fish, surface activity, follows, taps, or other signs of life, go to the next piece of cover. That move doesn't need to be dramatic. The shaded side of a dock might fish differently from the sunny side. A point exposed to wind might hold more food than a protected pocket. A weed edge beside deeper water might be better than an identical weed edge surrounded by shallow water. Keep observing while conditions change. New shade might reach the bank. Wind might begin pushing insects or bait fish toward one side. Fish might become active near the surface. A quiet area might suddenly develop a reason for fish to move into it. Good anglers aren't stubborn, and they aren't random. They make one reasonable adjustment, observe what happens, and remember what the water taught them. Here's the better rule. Treat no bites as a reason to investigate, not an immediate reason to surrender. So forget the search for one perfect fishing rule. Search the close water before casting far. Fish edges before featureless water. Improve your connection before replacing your gear. Change depth and speed before cycling through every lure color. Let the fish determine how quickly the bait should move. Watch for quiet changes instead of waiting only for a dramatic strike. And when nothing bites, change one variable at a time. On your next trip, keep the experiment simple. Bring one working rod and one basic bait or lure. Find several visible edges that offer fish comfort, food, or an ambush advantage. Cover the close, diagonal, and distant water. Test depth, then speed, then bait size. Watch the line, remove slack when something changes, and lift smoothly when you feel weight. If those controlled changes reveal nothing, move and begin the experiment again. You don't need to guess perfectly. You just need to stop following rules that prevent you from seeing what the fish in the water are already telling you.